You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm Dan Rowanson and this is part 2 of Claret and Blue Live. I'm re-recording this part of the intro because my microphone I used on the night wasn't very good, annoyingly, so I will stick some subtitles on screen at any difficult to hear parts as well. The second half of the show was a Q&A with the live studio audience. It could be questions on fans, players, Matt Kendrick's favourite takeaway, whatever it might be. Apologies if you listen to this on the audio version, but I will turn up the volume as best I can. So yeah, enjoy this second half of the show and let's hear the first question.
Hello, evening gents. I'm going to start with yourself, Matt. So my dad wasn't a football fan at all, so my start to football was the Birmingham Mail, the Evening Mail, and going back reading Ron Pablo and Gal joining and all that kind of stuff. And for yourself, Matt, how has it changed from your time there, seeing now particularly with the podcast and the fact that a lot more eyes are brought to the product, as you said before, where we can talk as fans but also bring ourselves to the newspaper. For you now seeing that difference, and okay, you're not typing all the time as you said, but you're part of all this, what change have you seen in the last 20, 30 years or whatever?
It's really interesting question actually. I think the local paper, and I think people probably got more fondness with the Argus, probably Sports Argus, than the Mail itself. But back then, clubs didn't really have their own avenues to promote tickets, to promote merchandise, stuff like that. So they probably needed us more. So in that sense, it was more reciprocal. They gave us more access. There was only probably the media pack, the press pack was smaller. You'd probably get a couple of locals, a couple of nationals, and BRMB, WM, stuff like that. Now there's so many people and so many different kind of media outlets and fan sites and bookmakers and all these type of things who are competing and jostling for space. Clubs don't need you. They've got their own platform. They can put their message out there. So I don't know whether I'm not a really good journalist. I don't know whether I'm a good journalist or a terrible journalist, but I've always turned up to press conferences, to interviews, the way I write, the way I talk. I said this in the bar earlier. If Aston Villa or any football club were buying thousands of copies of our newspapers or visiting our website a million times, they can control the message, but they're not. It's readers, it's fans. So I want to go and ask the questions that a fan would want to ask. And it puts you on a collision course sometimes. And I've fallen out with so many people to the extent, and Ash gets this a little bit now, that it's our club. We probably are a bit too kind of passionate as Villa fans, but we turn up, and because you're the one who's a bit awkward and you ask the uncomfortable question, you turn up to your own football club thinking, they don't want me here. That's horrible. You've kind of worked to try and get this job. If you can't play for Villa, getting paid to write about Villa, in my mind, is the next best thing. But you want to do your job and ask the questions that fans would ask, but it makes you feel awkward, really. So, like I said earlier, I'm a little bit lucky now because I'm removed from it in the sense that I can kind of say what I want as long as I don't libel anybody, and I don't have to front it, and I have to kind of put a filter on sometimes to think, well, I might not have to I might not have to front it. He's got to go there. He's got to face the manager I've slagged off. It has changed massively, but I like the fact that we can just communicate directly to you. 20, 30 years ago, after a match, we'd get the Argus on the shelves at 6 o'clock, 6:15, and you'd probably get 300 words of the first 60 minutes when nothing happened, and then you'd get the 6 goals that went in the last 10 minutes all put in the last paragraph. Now we can come, I don't know whether you appreciate this or whether you resent it, but we can come straight into your living rooms or straight into your phones or whatever immediately after the match. And just, I don't know, I'm really, without laying it on too thick, I'm really grateful that you guys have come along and supported us, because if you want tactical insight, yes, John and Pat will give it you, and Ash will give it you. Me and Dan, who tend to mop up a lot of the kind of post-match stuff, we want to replicate the nonsense that you have with your mates in the pub and stuff like that, the stupid things that we see. So I feel really, really lucky that I can almost keep winging this without bringing you any insight, just bringing you crap dad jokes and bits of fun. But it's a different beast now. I don't know whether that answers your question, but it's so far removed from what it once was. I like it.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Any other hands? The guy next to him, lovely stuff. Go on, go for
It's
it.
for you, Ash, actually.
So, the Gerrard comment, Cameron Archer's family.
Yeah.
That felt like a real breakdown in the relationship between the two of you. Did you feel that building before that, or was that kind of sitting to you that you went, "Oh, this isn't okay"?
It actually brought us closer together. Would you believe? The week after, I think he would. If I'd seen him outside of that night, I think he would have laid it on thick to me. But the week after, he said, "Cameron," he had a little joke with me. "Cameron's all right now, Ash, you know." So he was quite funny in that sense. I think he brought it close together. I had a good relationship with Steven, but that night, yeah, I think he just lost it. I think he said, "You've asked me 25 questions, 19 have been about Cameron." I was like, "I haven't, have I?" So he just lost his head that night. But he had a joke with me the week after, so he let it settle. But he just managed a frustration and he just lost it at me. And I had a laugh. We laughed it off in the end. Yeah.
Just as a follow up to that, when Gerrard was sacked, I think you did a tweet saying I kind of felt sorry for him or whatever, and fans poured in going, what are you talking about?
I know.
And you said in the first half of the podcast about kind of having a reporter hat and a fan hat. How do you kind of assess the reaction to his sacking? You know, would you have done anything different, or do you stand by that you had this kind of working relationship to an extent, and you kind of have to respect that?
I knew the man, didn't I, really? I've seen him every week. I've seen him more times than my missus and kind of thing, really. I did. I spoke to him more than the missus, but I had a relationship with him on a level, and he was good to me, to be honest. Where at times the relationship with the club wasn't. Like Matt said, you go into press conferences, because you're the Birmingham Mail, you tread on eggshells almost, because we do things a little bit differently. We ask the fan questions. But Stephen gave me really good answers, spoke to me really well, and I respected that.
A question here was from the guy in the black shirt, and he laughed and said, "Yeah, the guy in the black shirt. He knew Ash from primary school, this guy, and said, having known you for a long time and knowing that you're Villa through and through and things like that, how do you feel now working in the position that you do and being so close to the club and being able to report on the club for a living?" And also as a follow-up question, he wanted to know about how the whole Jack Grealish leaving saga affected Ash and the story that Ash did in the aftermath of Jack leaving for Man City last year. And how much that affected Ash on a personal level.
Yeah, this is all Matt's fault, is it? It's all your fault.
My fault, mate.
Yeah, Matt gave me the job, and dream job. It's hard at times. I'm a Villa fan as well. A lot of pressure. You're the Villa writer for the Birmingham Mail. It gets to you. It really does. I prefer to be sitting with you now and having a beer. To be fair, so it does get to you. Very emotional in that sense. I'm a Villa fan. Very proud to be in this job. So yeah, it does affect you a lot. It's your life. It takes over your life. So yeah, a lot of pressure to deal with. Like I say, the social media side of things as well. I'll come off social media tomorrow, but I'm there for you. And like you say, we ask the questions for you as well. But the Grealish stuff affected me quite badly as well. I was went in 2-footed too strongly. The fan of me coming out, I was hurt as well at the time. And that affected me mentally as well. I didn't need to do that. You live and learn. I've only been in the job now, my 4th season, so fairly new to it. But yeah, the Grealish stuff did affect me. I was probably too strong, I don't know. But you learn by your mistakes, don't you? And that's where I am. So, but yeah, very emotional being the Villa reporter, being a big Villa fan. Used to be in the other room, my dad. This eye, yeah, remember it like yesterday. So and to be here now, very emotional. Yeah, you get me going in a minute.
Pull yourself together. Sorry.
How does it feel to yourself to have brought what you learned maybe with the podcast and talking to other people and bring it to the Birmingham Mail now? Is that something that you're proud of, or do you want to go further with that?
When I was doing some freelance things at the time for various different outlets and stuff, and some for Villa as well, and it all kind of petered off a little bit and tailed away, and I was kind of in a place where I thought, I might just have to kind of abandon all this and go and get another job in a different industry or whatever. And this role came available, and we said, we want to launch a podcast and kind of improve our social media kind of page and stuff like that. So to bring kind of previous experience of kind of training on the job and doing it in my own time and then being paid to do it, like you said earlier, Matt, if you're not going to play for Villa, to be able to talk about them and some of the stuff we talk about on this podcast, it's a bit of a joke. This is our job at times, but yeah,
that's the boil.
Privileged to, yeah, where does that come from? Privileged to do, and the fact that we can do something like this and people actually turn up and spend their Friday nights listening to what we have to say is pretty mad, really, I think. I don't know whether that answers the question. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Go.
Club or country?
Club. I'm not even bothered about the World Cup.
Yeah, I'm still up for the World Cup though, but Villa is... I feel like everyone nowadays is club over country, to be honest, whether you're Villa or not.
Can I give you an analogy?
Yeah. I'm surprised it's taken this long to think of an analogy.
You know, do you ever see that? Do you ever see on the back? What the f*** am I doing with it? Do you ever see on the back of an ice cream van there's a really badly drawn Mickey Mouse or Disney character? I find England like that compared to Villa. Do you know what I mean? You get excited by the fact that it's coming along and there might be some kind of joy in it, but it's not the real thing, is it? Do you know what I mean? It looks like Mickey Mouse being smashed for the baseball bat or something like that. That's what it's like for me. It's kind of, it's something to keep you occupied, but it's not the real deal, really. So, and I was chatting to, sorry, I didn't get your name.
Yeah, Stuart.
Started chatting to Stuart at the bar, and a little tip: that bar around the back is a lot quieter. So, chatting to Stuart at the bar, and I think you said you've got a friend who's a Man United fan, and oh, is it your man here? So, we've outed him. Boo, boo. We'll see you in the third round. It's been so long. I would genuinely, not this season obviously, but I would genuinely take a League Cup over England winning the World Cup. And I don't know whether that makes me unpatriotic, probably even these three guys' generation, that I just, despite appearances, just missed out. I was 4 when Villa won the European Cup, so I didn't get to see the early 80s success. I did get to see the mid-90s League Cup success, and I thought that Villa won trophies every couple of years. I thought, this is standard. So it's been so long, and I know it's a cliche, and I know that we're all kind of got delusions of grandeur because we're living on black and white photographs for many years, but I think it's a scandal that, you know, the best thing he's seen is just beating Derby County at Wembley, and I enjoyed that game every bit as much as he did, but surely we need more than that, and I'd take Villa over England every single day.
The next question was about Emi Buendia, obviously a club record signing, somebody that we spent a lot of money on, and particularly under Steven Gerrard didn't get much game time. The question was asking whether we saw a future for Emi Buendia under Unai Emery.
I think he will be. I think he'll be a key man under Emery. I think especially in the formation that he's playing. I think last season he had the third most through balls in the Premier League, the sixth most in Europe's top 5 leagues. He loves to play that little slider ball. If you can get him in that position, as you know, that little hole behind those two strikers, he's got options, he's got players running beyond him. And under Gerrard, I don't think he really, every week he'd say, oh, I love him. He's, what did he call him? He's like,
a warrior.
A little warrior, yeah. But we never he was on the bench, obviously, and he didn't quite get his fair chance, in my opinion, and probably everyone else in this room probably thought he has to play more and start more. But under Emery, I think we'll see that, because especially in this formation that we're playing, there's going to be runners beyond him. He's going to have chances to create. I think this morning there was a player for the out of the MLS that got called up to the Argentina team that plays in his position, and that's a crime. How Emi Buendia costs £34 million. We know what level he can play at, and he's not getting the Argentina team because it's not just Steven Gerrard's fault, but if he had those opportunities, if he had those opportunities, he'd probably be in the World Cup squad now, and he's probably, what must he be thinking as an Argentinian as well? It means so much to them. So no, under Emery especially, I think he'll be a really important player, because we know what quality he has. So what do you think, Ash?
Needs more goals and more.
He does.
Yeah. More, his numbers, assists and stuff. We'll have that chat quite frequently in the car on the journey to games with the reporters and stuff. And he needs to start doing it now. I think now's the time to judge him from now until the end of the season. He's been there a couple of years now as well. So he needs to start seeing it now. And the Coutinho signing didn't help him, did it?
No.
He was knocked down the peg there. So I think we need to start seeing it now, because fans love him, don't they? And when he's on song, he's one of the better players.
I feel like it gives you something going the other way as well. He's bitty when he comes off the bench. He's running around everywhere, like against Everton. He changed the game, and obviously you want him doing that from the start when he's starting. But I think for Emery as well, he likes to have that creative player that can also go the other way too. And when you're playing with two holding midfielders, those extra two in front of them can go, but then they also need to, once we don't have the ball, they need to tuck in. And I think Buendia can do that. So I think he's got a really bright future under Emery. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of years we'll really start to see what he's made of, and why we spent, what was it, 34 million? Yeah. There's a lot of money to spend on a player. Club record transfer as well. So yeah, I'm excited for him.
Want to ask the manager as well, I think, on him specifically. For
sure,
this one. Yeah.
Something a little bit more light-hearted. Your first shirt and your favourite shirt.
These two that we've got up here will probably be not far off, to be honest. I love this Luke Roper away shirt. I love an away shirt. Don't have that. I wish it was mine. And this Acorns one as well. I like the first year that I had Acorns. It wouldn't have been my first kit. I didn't start going to when 2005, 6, 7, something like that. So actually not far off, to be fair. It was my first kit as going as a fan.
Did we have a like Lecoq Sportif shirt in the early 80s? I'm sure there's a picture of me like wearing a knockoff version of it from Blackheath Market, like in Grange Park in Dudley. You know, honing the sweet left foot that I've got, and I got the worst kind of bowl cut.
I didn't expect Blackheath Market to come in this year.
Well, we need a sponsor, don't we? So I thought I'd shout them out. So I think it was that. The best shirt. It's weird because I think this feeds into the debate about the badge. Yeah. They could stick a paralytic lion upside down, juggling black puddings, and if we win a trophy in it, that will automatically become the best design, the most beautiful piece of art ever. And I think, you know, you hate the Muller, don't you? The
green and black. The
green and black one. And I kind of,
it's horrible.
And I love it because it reminds me of Dino and Dahlia, and you know, do you know what I mean? So it's more what stating the obvious, more what players do in that shirt, isn't it, than how it looks. So yeah, I think it's the AST one. We won the cup in '96. I do like the little drawstring.
Umbra.
Yeah, I was winning at Slimming World back then. I managed to wear that for the playoff final, but I wasn't going to try. I wasn't going to try it tonight, to be honest. But yeah, I'm more about what we did in it than the design, to be honest.
Yeah, same for me. My era was John Gregory, so the Reebok, LDV Vans kind of stuff. The 2000 final kit, the red blue striped one. Yeah. That was the year. I had all the tracksuit, the Reebok tracksuits running around here when I was little. So yeah, the Reebok era was mine, with the cup final, and I had the Davy James one. I don't remember it, the sky blue one. I never have goalkeeper kits, but I had that one for some reason. I liked it, and yeah, so the Reebok era, John Gregory, LDV Vans kind of stuff.
John, you're a lot younger than some of us, so is yours like last season's kit?
My first was I think it was 05-06. Yeah, it was the Hummel with the little yellow trim.
Yeah.
I think it's the Angel era as well. Yes. Yeah, the yellow and blue away shirt, which I quite liked, so back then. Yeah, that was my first, and then it's boring, but 82 away kit, it's my favourite. Apologies, but that's the club, you know, it's iconic. So yeah, that's my favourite.
If you could go for a pint with any player, past or present, who you taking for a beer?
I've been chatting to Mick Dowell and Hannah from the club earlier. David Platt is the one for me. I want to really get him on our podcast, but I've not been brave enough. I've got a number for him. I've not been brave enough to do it because back in the day. Yes, should we phone him now? Yeah. I can imagine.
Oh, that'd be so good.
One of the when I first started covering the Villa, I don't know, probably 2007, 2006, 7, something like that. I got a number for Platt, and I think I speaking to him about, I can't remember what player it was. I interviewed him talking about another player, and when I picked up the phone to him, I thought, don't be an arsehole. Not me. I was always going to be an arsehole. Don't be a. And he picked up the phone. Great, gave me what I needed. Let me have a little bit of fanboy chat with him at the end, and I thought, job done. So I'm really, really reluctant to ruin that now because he was my hero as a kid. But I think, a bit like we did with O'Neill last week, and I think we did a little bit with Gareth Barry, I kind of want to give him the chance to say, actually, I haven't forgotten about Aston Villa. You know, you might think that I've airbrushed Aston Villa and, you know, the club that put me on the map are dead to me. I don't think that will be the case. I want to speak to him and just spend an hour in his company talking about Aston Villa and thinking, you know, seeing what it really meant to him. But I just need to pluck up the courage to do it. I'm not doing it now.
Go on, do it now.
What, start WhatsApp group and put Platt, me and all of you like in it, and we just do it like, come on David, come on, you're amongst friends. So yeah, David Platt.
Night out with Jack, that'd be pretty lively, wouldn't it? Yeah. I don't think I'll get home. Other than that, I'd like to have a point with Dean Smith.
I was going to say that as well.
Nice. Yeah, so-
you think of him as being a little bit reserved, and then you see him on the balcony at Wembley giving it big, and you think, oh, he'd be alright, I reckon.
Yeah. But a couple of guineas with Dean would be good.
No, just quickly on Dean as well. He probably doesn't get enough. Every time there's interviews and stuff, he never sort of expands on everything that you want him to talk about. Sometimes Dean, he's probably got so much to say and so many stories. It's probably something for after when he's retired, maybe from management. But I don't think that'd be any time soon because he seems to live and breathe it. But yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, an interview with Smith or whatever, a beer, whatever it may be. But there must be so many stories. That's a boyhood Villa fan, coaching Villa. Used to cycle past Villa Park as a kid, go into his paint factory or whatever. It's like the best story there is. And obviously when we had Jack as captain as well, it was a great era. But I got a Nick Ash's answer, unfortunately.
Dean Smith interview? After Martin O'Neill?
I've said it loads of times. He's like O'Neill was always one that I always wanted and thought we'd never get. And I've said to you loads of times, I want Smith, not next, but I want that to happen. But whether it happens while he's still in work, I'm not sure. So if he gets the boot from Norwich, get the phone out. I hate it. Next question. Yeah,
on the flip side of that, who would you least want to go for?
Me and Paul Lambert had a very love-hate relationship, and that we love to hate each other. And he waited. I don't know whether Martin O'Neill put the poison down for me, or whether Lambert learned to hate me in his own right. I think I did. Am I right in saying that Wigan won the FA Cup on the Saturday, and then we got relegated? Beat Man City in the FA Cup on the Saturday, and then got relegated by losing to Arsenal on the Tuesday or something. By virtue of that, we stayed up, just about kept our heads above water. And I'd not been in his office all season at Bodymore. I'd been in the manager's office previously, and he invited me in. And the next day, you must come into the office. Nah, mate, I've got childcare commitments, so I'll put it back for another day. And I went in, and I don't know whether you've been to I've not been to Bodymore for 5 or 6 years. It's probably changed now. His desk, he was on a raised platform, like the head teacher, and anybody who was seeing him was like the lowest of the low. And there was a press officer at the time called Brian Dugan, and I didn't particularly get on well with him either. And Lambert had got an A4 pile of tweets and stories that I'd written that had annoyed him, and it was fairly thick. And so he starts ranting, properly kind of hairdryer treatment, properly angry, and he starts screwing up these pieces of paper and saying, "If only you knew this," throwing a piece of paper. And halfway through, this lasted for about 20 minutes, but halfway through, he went out to get a glass of water because he was like choking himself because he was so... And I looked at Brian Dugan, the press officer, and he looked at me, and I was like, oh. And Brian was like, I don't know what's going on. And eventually, he's throwing these pieces of paper around, and he's trying to return to a point that he's made. So I must have said something nice about Darren Bent or something, and he hated Darren Bent. So he's trying to remember what he'd said, and he's scrabbling around on his hands and knees trying to find these pieces of paper. And I'm thinking, and I said to myself, and I knew I was going to get the battering from him, so I said to myself before I went in, don't laugh and don't cry. And honestly, I didn't know what to do by the time I come out of there. And we had 20 minutes of him just absolutely right. If only you knew this, Matt. And I said, Paul, I'm the local reporter. Why don't you tell me? I'm not asking for your PIN number. I'm asking for what's, I don't know, Alan Hutton done with his hamstring or whatever it was. And we actually, sorry, this story, I won't go on for too much, but we actually, 20 minutes of him blasting me, giving me the hairdryer treatment. Then we shook hands and said, listen, I don't need much. Just give me little bits and pieces. We shook hands. Great. The next match, I think we were away at Wigan. Was it the last game of the season? We were away at Wigan or something, and he was really civil to me in the press conference and answered my questions. Really nice. And then that summer, Villa played a pre-season tournament in Germany, and it was like really kind of basic kind of third or fourth tier clubs in the middle of fields in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't know, they wouldn't tell me where they were staying, so I was staying like, I don't know, 60 miles away or whatever. I turned off after the first match, and Jack Woodward did his little bit, how did the game go? And I went to ask a question, and Lambert was like, I'm not doing anything with you. I'm not speaking to you. I was like, I thought we clearly, no, I'm not doing anything with you. And this is probably where some of my professionalism slips. I thought, you, I'm going to have you. Just censor this bit. When the time comes, I'm going to boot you out this door so hard that, and the worst thing about that was I knew that Villa could be funny with access. I got a double page spread in the following day's mail, and it spoke to somebody who'd done a coaching badge with him in Germany. I think it was the course leader. He was one of his colleagues who'd been on this course, saying what a brilliant manager he was. He was the best thing since sliced bread, and how he was going to revolutionise Villa. And he's absolutely just kind of hung me out to dry. And the next thing is this almost kind of glorified reference for him. I thought, oh God, it made me feel horrible. So eventually, even despite my petty little gripes and my kind of personal relationship, I had to wait until it became clear that he wasn't the man to manage Aston Villa, and then good riddance. So
front page, isn't it?
So yeah, so he's on next week's podcast.
The next question asked about the youth academy and the next prospect coming through into the first team, and whether Unai Emery had previously blooded youth at clubs he'd been at before Aston Villa.
Villarreal, he's certainly brought through youth players. Nicholas Jackson, the striker, we've been linked with him. Alex Buendia, midfielder, and there was another chap.
Winger, what's his name?
Samu Chukwueze. Jeremy Pino. Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah. So he's brought through youth. Brought through youth for Villarreal. Don't know what the guys will say. I think Tim Irubenham's probably ahead of most, playing really well for QPR, as we all know. Seems to be the right profile as well for a Premier League midfielder. Something that would work well in that double pivot that Emery plays. Yeah. You've obviously got names as well that we've heard of in terms of your Barrys, Kessler Haydens, Aaron Ramsey doing well at Norwich too. I think a couple of them are struggling. I say struggling, they're youth players playing in men's football. It's not, struggling is too harsh of a word. Kessler Hayden has not played too many minutes at Huddersfield. Barry's scored 1 goal for MK Dons. But it's all a learning process, isn't it? Players develop at different ages. Cameron Archer was barely scoring for Solihull Moors in the National League, and now we're saying he should be playing in the Premier League. So players develop at different times. So we have to be careful of that. But to answer the question, Tim Irubenham for me is certainly one to be knocking on the door next year. Because would he go out on loan again to a top championship team? He's already had that for a year, maybe. But I think Emery might want to fit him in the first team at some point.
I agree.
Yeah, currently Tommy O'Reilly's one to keep an eye on. Tommy O'Reilly, he's the star player for the 21s at the moment. I think he's got 5 in 5. I know it's 21s football, but he's very much Barry Bannon about him, left-footed, number 10. A lot of excitement about him. He's from Tamworth, big Villa fan as well, Tommy. So I'll give him a shout out. Yeah, good player.
This next question asked about Frederick Gilbert, Marvelous Nakamba and Morgan Sanson, 3 players that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, and whether their futures will be at Villa Park in the long term.
Yeah, I suppose Sanson didn't get on in the Cup at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Was there anything said about why he didn't get a look in?
Christian Perslow spoke to a few of the reporters at the unveiling, and he said Emery's big on Sanson. He likes him from previously, so we took that. Okay, I think John Percy ran it as well. New chance for Sanson here, but we haven't seen him, have we? Really? He come off against Man U. So yeah, funny one, Sanson. Like Dan said, how many times we've spoken about that? Is he going to finally kick on? Don't know. Gilbert, I think he'll be sold. I think he'll move on now. Yeah, something's happened there with Freddie, but he'll leave in January. I've been told that as well. So, yeah, Sanson don't get Nakamba. Yeah, this time last year, Player of the Month, flying, wasn't it, John?
Yeah,
strange one.
That one's really. I thought it was really strange, especially for Gerrard to have a player that's clearly fitted him so well. Surely you would use him, but obviously it didn't happen. His contract runs out next summer. The one after, the one 24, so a year and a half remaining on his contract. So you would have thought Villa would cash in, if not January, in the summer. So yeah, I think all 3 of them. I can't see a future for any of them, and it's sad for Sanson because he's clearly a good player. But although it's like, Gerrard didn't give him a chance, but if he was a good player and he was playing well and he was available every time, would he not be playing? I think he would. Yeah. And he hasn't been. So yeah, pretty sure they put him for me.
Yep.
Who do you think Emery would choose as captain?
Oh, good question. Again, we talked in the first part, didn't we, about Gerrard changing it for change's sake almost, and whether that was worth doing. McGinn being captain is something we've talked about a lot before, and whether that was the right choice. I think Emery will probably change it in the summer maybe, or I don't think he'll change it any sooner than that, because there's not really much point. I think we spoke about it, saying that if McGinn's not in his starting lineup anyway, it's not a debate to have, is it? Yeah. He won't be captain anyway. Martinez is probably the obvious choice. It's our shout. It's the shout we gave in the other room at the start of the season. If he is going to change it, Martinez is the perfect fit. So I'd imagine it would be him, depending on what their relationship is like, would be my answer.
Saves himself a potential issue, doesn't he, as well? Martinez is going to play every game. Yeah. We know he's a leader. There's leaders on the pitch everywhere, but with Martinez, it's you almost putting the armband to a side and saying, all right, it's him. Everyone get on with it, sort of thing. You know, if it's McGinn or Mings, you're taking it off the other and giving it to him. There's a reason. But if you're giving it to Martinez, he's playing every game. So I think that's what Gerrard should have done if he was going to change Mings, which he didn't have to. I don't think Emery would bring in a new player to make a captain. I don't know if I'm not sure that would happen. It's almost like being a bit too power hungry if you're going to be doing that. It almost sets a signal of like, I don't think any of you are capable of leading the team, so I'm going to bring my own guy.
If that's the right decision, then
if it is, I don't think he will. For me, I think Martinez will be captain from next season onwards. I don't think he'll change it.
I think if you're talking about longevity as well, have McGinn and Mings, will they be the players in the side if we do get into Europe? Possibly not. Martinez should be playing every week for a top 6 side. So if we do take the next step up into Europe, whenever that is, Martinez can kind of be captain for 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely loves it as well. I spoke to him at Brighton last week, and I love this club, man. He's really like, okay. I think Neil Cutler said on a recent podcast, he's really like proper, like loves it, and like, he's great for the chance Villa gave him when we signed him. Bit out of the blue, wasn't it? That £20 million signing, thinking. We had Tom Eaton.
We're almost talking, do we even need a goalkeeper?
Yeah, but he's really grateful. Really. Yeah, he absolutely loves it. He's my shout as well, John. Emiliano Martinez, love him. And great in interviews as well. Such a good talker. Really passionate. And what a signing he's been. Yeah, unreal.
I was just wondering what your aspirations for the podcast is, where you want to take it, how big you want to make it. Obviously, the bigger you guys grow, the bigger Villa is. So, you know, everyone in here is behind you already. So where do you want to take it?
Vegas.
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, we get a lot of comments. We were talking about this earlier. Like people kind of say things like, "Oh, well done for doing this at like 10 o'clock at night after a game." And I always kind of think, well, "This is our job, so I kind of have to do it." It's not really. We could have just said, "Oh, we'll work between 9 and 5," but we like doing it, so we'll do it. We want to be the best Villa podcast, I suppose, the biggest, the most viewed. You know, we're not kind of driven by numbers, so to speak, but you don't want to post a podcast and no one watches it because that kind of defeats the purpose. So. Yeah, I don't think we ever talk about kind of aspirations of where we want to go, but as long as we're still enjoying it and people are watching, that's kind of good enough.
I like it when people, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, people don't realise we're associated with Birmingham Live and they think we're a fan podcast. I think sometimes that plays into our hands. I'd like us to, I say we, this is me, got a little bit lazy with some of the guests. I think we've done some good things with some of the former players, and I like trying to tell the stories of late 90s to now. I think with respect to the 82 guys that we went to Cornwall to see when we could have actually seen them in Lichfield, those stories have been told a lot. I think there's a lot of stories in the late 90s, the noughties, in the last 10 years that I'd like to tell those stories a little bit more. And I don't know, I think Dan's, don't want to embarrass him because I don't like saying nice things about him because he comes and asks for a pay rise, but I think Dan's given an extra level of polish to what we do, and I'd like us to do little mini documentaries. We did a little Grealish backgrounder piece, didn't we, 2 or 3 years ago, and we've not really, we were planning to do a Steven Gerrard kind of backgrounder piece and never got round to it. But I think there's lots of stories. I'd love us to tell the story, not wishing to kind of cramp Max Stokes' style, because he does a really good job on Villa on tour, but I'd love to do the story of an Aston Villa away day and all these kind of things. So yeah, just to do things that you guys find remotely interesting, really, and that you can get engaged with. And it's a joy for me. My job's changed in recent years, and I've reinvented myself as a kind of middle manager who does spreadsheets and rotas and sends Ash, costs up if Ash is going to Australia and he's having the whale of a time, and I'm filling in a spreadsheet. Can we afford to feed him on the morning and all this kind of thing?
You love that, though.
So I don't mind it, but I like having this as a kind of a little bit of an outlet, so I can, I don't know, pretend I'm still relevant, I suppose. Football's supposed to be fun, isn't it? And, if we're just restricted to what we see on the pitch twice a week and we're going through a blip like we have been doing on and off for the last 10 or 12 years or whatever it is, it's mind-numbing, So if we can just introduce a little bit of silliness along the way and you can indulge us with it as well, then, I don't know, just try and inject a bit of fun, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's taken 34 minutes before we got our first question about the January transfer window. This one was about assessing the squad we've got so far and what additions we might need in the next few weeks.
For me, I think the double pivot that we've got now is really good. I don't think we need to do any additions there. Up front, there's always an argument about Ollie Watkins, and Danny Ings hasn't quite hit it yet, even though we bought him for 30 million. But obviously in the last game, there was positive signs. Behind that, your Leon Bailey's, Buendia's, they haven't quite shown enough. I don't think we could be clouded by the last 2 games. Bailey has taken a long time to adapt, and so has Buendia. So potentially a player in that forward role that Emery probably trusts and knows. But to me, that comes with recruitment. Emery isn't just going to pick out a player, because that's the recruitment team, that's their job. He'll come to the recruitment team and say, I want this player that does this and this and this, and they'll give him a list of 5 players or whatever. So far, I don't think we've done that very well, especially after Grealish, so that needs to change. But to answer the question, I would be looking... I like Matty Cash, but I think at right back, can we have a player that's more productive? It's not a slight at Matty Cash, I think he's a very good player, but I think more competition there would be a positive. I think there's a lot of situations where there's a final ball's lacking. I think in the Brighton one, when he's gone past the play, which is great, and he's lifted it up to Buendia for a header, just play it across the floor, and it's a goal. And obviously we scored from it straight after, so it's not so bad. But just those key moments, you might only get one of those in a game, and if that's the difference, in those positions, you need to make the most of it. So potentially, can we look at a right back if the right fit is there? And a forward player, whether it's a striker or a player that can link play, whatever it may be, I'm sure that's the sort of area that we'll be looking at as well, because the midfield's fine. Diego Carlos is coming back, potentially a centre-back will be looking in the summer, and we have a left-back in Luca Dean and a goalkeeper in Martinez, so I don't think it's major surgery. If he can drop a player in here and there that he knows is going to work for him, I'm sure the club will back him to do that.
Thank you for indulging me with all my questions. I could go all night. But just to give you your flowers, as it were, thank you, gents. We really enjoyed the podcast, hence why we're all here. And a bit of a round of applause.
I feel bad for skipping over you on the last one.
Carlos.
Okay.
Does he come in for Konza? What happens there? Where does he sit in the team now?
I like Konza. I really like Konza. Interesting how he reacts to that Achilles injury. Yeah. I'm really intrigued by it. Will he lose a yard of pace? Interesting, Emery picked out Diego Carlos. Said really good recruitment that was, and that was unprompted from him. So Emery knows he's a really good player. I think he comes straight into the team. Yeah, interesting. We were speaking about Tyrone Mings' contract, wasn't we?
Yeah.
18 months left to run, near enough.
Yeah, so there's a decision there. It's kind of creeped up on us a little bit, Danny Ings as well, but come the summer, he's going to have 12 months left. A decision needs to be made. He's going to be 30 by the time, and I want Tyrone Mings to stay at the club, but his club's a business. His value's going to decrease from now on. Sure, there'll be interest if there was an availability of a new centre-back coming in, but I want Mings to stay at the team, in the team. For Mings, is he going to be assured those peak years of his career? Is he going to be playing every game? Don't know if he's going to get that promise. It depends what he wants as well. Is he settled here? Probably, but a decision will be made on that for sure. But yeah, I think Connor's he's played better in recent weeks as well.
Yeah.
And they've kind of formed that bond that they had in the 2021 season. But competition for places is never a bad thing, is it? So I expect Carlos to come back in at some point. Depends how quickly he gets up to speed, because that Achilles, snapping your Achilles is quite something. But to be fair, how quickly he's recovered from it is probably a positive sign. It's not as if he's been out for 6 or 7 months. He's been out for 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a positive in itself.
It's changing the guard now as well. You look at McGinn's out the team now. First name on the team sheet previously. Tyrone as well. But he's been played well this season. I'll give him a new deal myself.
Like Dendonka's played really well whenever he's played, but Douglas Luiz and Kamara, you kind of think, well, can they be dropped? Probably not. So competition for places, exactly that. Yeah.
Something we've not had for a long time.
If you're going to be in Europe, you need a bench that you look at and think, oh, he's unlucky. He's unlucky not to play. There we go. Yeah, exactly.
With the
European tour. Come on.
The next question asked Matt for his best dad joke, and Matt, in his typical fashion, got derailed and didn't actually answer the question. So this is the random tangent that he went down.
We're at Old Trafford last week, and like I said, I took my son, and we went to the game, and bumped into a couple of people, not giving it the big one, but a couple of people came over and said, "Oh Matt, thanks for what you do, we enjoy the podcast and stuff." You just see my son rolling his eyes, and he's thinking, really? Really? All you do is you just spout nonsense, you just tell these really bad puns, these really bad analogies and really bad jokes. And I was feeling good about myself because I've got a bit of acclaim from fellow Villa fans. We nailed the O'Neill thing, it was really good. And he's like, Dad, there's Max Stokes, do you know him? Can I have my photo taken with him? And I'm like, whoa, come on. I'm the Max Stokes for 45-year-old men. You know, give me some love. So I can't think of one, but I'll work on one and I'll get one for you for the next podcast.
For the end of this show, Jim?
I don't know. Can I ask you guys a question? Who be realistic, who would you like us to see get on the podcast in terms of perhaps former players, former managers, that kind of thing?
That big fat Ron.
I think we want to do. This is why I hired this guy, to be honest, because I went to the Big Ron's Barnt Green bloody estate 3 years ago, filmed or recorded a really dodgy interview on an iPhone, and some good stuff, but it just doesn't. That was when our podcast was called the brilliant title Aliv Notza, which is Aston Villa backwards, which I thought was a brilliant title. But Big Ron, I think I'd like to go and see Big Ron. He's got so many brilliant stories to tell. I think it'd be a great one.
The next question was the most memorable match you've ever been to, and I threw my head back in despair there because the Guinness had just started to seep into my bloodstream and my mind was completely blank at this point.
I'll go with this because my wife's a long-suffering football widow who... My son's obsessed now. My daughter's just turned 12, and I think my wife thought that my daughter had never shown an interest in football before, so she'd be able to kind of. It sounds a bit sexist, but go shopping and do girly things with my daughter. And now she's obsessed with playing football now. Villa ladies coming to the Villa men's games occasionally. My wife has only ever been to 2 Aston Villa matches. This was a long time ago when we were courting. Do you say that word anymore, or is that something? When we a long time ago anyway. And she came to the Tranmere game when we beat Tranmere on penalties to get to the 1994 FA Cup League Cup final, and she came to the Inter Milan game when we beat Inter Milan on penalties. So why she's never been back again? You know, so it'd be those games, and I don't know whether you can still have retrospective banning orders and stuff. But I was on the pitch both of those games as well, and it was, I don't know, it's just that it's a cliche, isn't it? But especially the Inter Milan game, you know, Villa European nights under floodlights, you know, that's one of my biggest regrets from being a Villa reporter, that I got. As the number one Villa reporter, I only got 2 European trips, you know, two European away trips, and they were Rapid Vienna in the preliminary round of the Europa League in 2008-9, and then, lo and behold, who did we draw the next round? Rapid Vienna. It's a lovely city, you know, anything you need to know about the architecture or the tourist trail around there is great, but... You know, I don't know whether my wife would agree with this, but if we can get back into Europe, as John has predicted tonight, you know, either I'm going to have to look at those spreadsheets and try and blag myself along as part of the Claret and Blue podcast, or I'm going to take my boy to experience some of it as well, I think. So, yeah, be those 2 games.
The only one that my missus was the 5-1 Birmingham City, so she ain't been down since.
We need to bring him. Send him instead of us.
Yeah, that was the one. A funny one sticks out for me all the time. I don't know why. 6-1 Sunderland at home Monday night. I don't know why. Ron Vlaar scoring from distance. It was always really good down there. And Matt Loughton as well, Stoke away. I remember the coach broke down, and it was one of them away days, and seeing Loughton's goal live was pretty good as well. So them 2 stick out for me.
First vivid memory of Villa would have been
Brighton away. I'm telling
you. The Blackburn game
with the flags.
Yeah, all the flags. That's my first vivid memory. But in recent times, the 4-2 over Blues at home I thought was really good. Alan Hutton's goal was crazy. The atmosphere with the Blues games was always good. I wasn't there, but the Grealish 1-0 away, I don't see how anything could top that. Like,
you there for that?
No.
He's been assaulted on the pitch and then scored the winner. Like, he's a Villa fan and he's a captain, and we beat Blues 1-0. It doesn't get any better. So
just on that,
not be assaulted though.
But that made it the day better.
To me, that was a story of kind of good conquering evil. To be honest, it was like a Hollywood thing.
That.
And I was in the press box that day at St Andrews, and God, I had to go through sheep dip on the way in and on the way out. But not wishing to name drop massively, because Ash has done his best to ruin my relationship with Jack Grealish's dad. But Kevin Grealish phoned me after that game, and he was going on a mad rant. I'm going on WM. I'm gonna go and dig him out. I'm gonna say this is. I was like, Kev, just calm down. You know, your boy's come through it. He's done all he needs to do. You don't need to do. You don't need to go and fight the fight. He's done it on his own. He probably still went on WM. I can't remember, but it was. And it was part. I don't know what stage it was in that run. I think it was quite early on in that winning run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Game 3 or 4.
Yeah, it was early.
Something like that. And that was just the momentum. You thought, well, Aston Villa don't do fairy tales, but this year they do. So yeah, that was a you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want those circumstances. No. But in terms of if you get those circumstances, what a way to kind of to answer back, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'd pick a podcast guest. I think Steve Gerrard.
Yeah.
He's another one who I've got on a really dodgy iPhone file somewhere. But yeah, I think he's definitely. We'll try and do that because he straddles, obviously the glory years, but he straddles several eras. And as much as we perhaps never recovered or are waiting to recover from O'Neill leaving in the manner that he did, I think. I don't know what, take a straw poll across the room, I don't know what people think about Paul Faulkner. I got on pretty well with Paul Faulkner, and I think Paul Faulkner had the potential to be a pretty good administrator at Aston Villa, but he would have benefited from 2 or 3 years working alongside Steve Stride to kind of get access to the contact book to find his way around football. So I think Steve Stride's departure, maybe not as big a blow as Martin O'Neill leaving when he did, but it was a significant blow. So definitely we'll stick him on the list, Dan. All right.
Yeah. The penultimate question of the evening was to John and Ash. Were there any points over the last 12 months in the Steven Gerrard era where they wanted to ask a question but felt like they couldn't ask it?
To be fair, we're quite good. We do ask the questions that we want to know the answer to, and often you won't get the answer that you want, so it's almost you don't publish it because it will be a case of the obvious. But nothing springs to mind. You always press him. In fact, Gerrard was really good, as Ash said, with the media. I think a couple of times he probably got caught up with like the Ming stuff, the Archer stuff, but he was really good with us and he did answer everything. Media trained to a part, I suppose. But I can't think of anything that wasn't asked. Maybe we didn't press him enough on the kind of about your future early enough, because I think the red flags were there. We knew that it was probably going to be coming in a couple of weeks or whatever. But I think as journalists, if you ask, do you think you're going to get sacked in a couple of weeks, he'll ignore you for the next, until he does go. So you got to kind of, watch what you say, I suppose. But that would have been, to answer the question, that would have been what I'd probably ask. Do you fear for your job? Close.
You're so wise, John, aren't you? That's where I went wrong, isn't it? Asking him at the day of the unveiling. You're on borrowed time, aren't you, mate?
And the final question from our Claret and Blue Live Q&A asked about the relationship with Christian Purslow and Unai Emery. Obviously, Steven Gerrard was Christian Perslow's man. Unai Emery is effectively Nassef Sawiris' man. So does that change the dynamic between the board and the management team?
No, I don't think so. Maybe it's a bit of a power shift there. I think maybe the owners previously trusted Christian's judgment with the Gerrard appointments a bit too much. Whereas this time, I want him, I want Unai. He's my man. So I think that shifted there with that. But maybe they trusted Christian with that judgment. They're looking back now, made the wrong call there, and they put it upon themselves to. We'll appoint our own man this time, and that's what's happened.
Good answers, good questions. Thank you very much for getting involved in that second half of the show, because that would have really fallen on its arse if no one had put their hand up. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your thoughts and comments. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.